Now, the word that we're hearing, once again, we haven't heard it in almost, 3 decades, stagflation. And stagflation was a new word when it was coined in the 1970s. It was coined to describe a phenomenon that economists did not think they would see. By and large, people often thought that economic growth and inflation work in opposite directions. They don't really go together. So in other words, if you have economic growth, you could have some inflation that goes with it, but you're not likely to see inflation that goes along with economic stagnation. The very fact that prices are going up generally means wages are going to go up. And so you're going to see inflation, you're going to see economic growth, but you're not going to have a case where you essentially have bad news on both fronts. That's stagflation. Stag here referring to stagnation or stagnancy. And and then the inflation part of it is, of course, inflation. But that's what we have now. And, in the 1970s, it was driven by an energy crisis that was largely caused by OPEC, by a cartel of foreign countries essentially controlling and manipulating the prices of oil and gas. But now we don't have that. In fact, there have been huge discoveries of natural gas in America. And so it is our own refusal, and by our here I mean the decision by the Biden administration to block access to oil leases. So we're not tapping our own available resources. And as a result, we have not just an escalation of gas prices, we not only have almost 9% inflation, but we're now beginning to see the effects in the economy. We see it in the stock market, by the way, down over 20%, 22% already this year. That's, a correction is a polite word for the market is, you're basically going to be losing a whole bunch of money. If you had $1,000 in the stock market, you're down to about 780 or 790. And that's a blow, and that scares people, and people then think, maybe I should sell, because who knows if the market goes down further, it's going to wipe out savings that have painfully built up over many, many years. Now, what one should do in the situation individually, you or me or your family or mine, depends a little bit on how old we are. Because if you're young, by and large, I think a way to look at it is, if you have confidence in long term in the United States of America, and if you believe that our problems are not permanent, we're not a country that is like the Titanic going under the ocean. If you believe that, it's a whole different matter. You might want to look for other opportunities abroad. You might want to bet on emerging markets because investing in the U.S. stock market is betting on the long-term success of the United States. Now, if you're doing that, it still makes a difference as to whether you're doing it at age 25 or 27, let's just say the Danielle's age, or if you're doing it when you are on the verge of retirement. Because when you're on the verge of retirement, you need the money, and you need the money in relatively short order, a year or 3 years, or perhaps at most 5 years. And when markets do sharp corrections, sometimes the market correction is short-lived. In 2008, the market went down, actually a big so-called crash of 2008, but really big deal, because in relatively short order, the market was back up. But in our lifetime, I'm not talking about the Great Depression in which the market collapsed basically in 1929 and didn't really start getting back until the 1940s. You'd have to be probably around 1948 or 49 when the market was sort of back where it was and now moving, you may say, into the black or into positive territory. But something like that has happened one other time. Now, obviously not another Great Depression, but if you put money in the stock market in 1968, you would find that money earned nothing. The market was relatively flat from 1968 to 1982. So let's think about that. That is over a decade. In fact, it's close to a decade and a half. And it wasn't until the Reagan recovery of 1983 that the market finally begins to move into positive territory, positive compared to $1 put into the market 15 years prior. So what this means, again, is that if you're older, these market setbacks are very bad. And you should probably be looking for ways to reduce your dependence on the market and have more of your money in safer investments that can be accessed more easily. On the other hand, if you're younger, Well, another option the Wall Street Journal recommends, which I think is worth considering, is they call it retire slowly. Don't retire in one shot where you stop working, end of story, kind of like my dad stopped working, retired. But no, you sort of phase down, you take part-time jobs. So you're still earning money, you're still in the economy. And frankly, if there's inflation, it's going to push up your wages in that economy. So that will soften the blow. If you're younger, then you can afford to ride these things out. You can even ride out a 10-year crater in the market. Because look, Biden's inflicting us with a lot of problems, and if Republicans take the House and Senate, those problems are not going to be fixed overnight. Even if Republicans win the White House in 2024, it takes time to set a ship that is off course, or an airplane that's banking completely to one side to set it back onto the right course of action. So we are paying dearly for this president, or perhaps I should say this usurper in the White House.